Hello, hobby community. ZiggyNo, aka the Card Hunter, here with a video discussion on sports card breaking. I'm actually going to comment on the conversation between Jeremy Lee and I believe it's Steven from Filth Bomb Breaks Saturday night on Sports Card Live. First of all, I want to say I am a pro breaking person. I am very much for breaking, but I am also pro self-regulation at this point with some type of regulation where needed. And I'll talk about that. You'll hear more about that in my channel. Purpose of my video is to explain some of the questions I asked, and I appreciate that Jeremy did ask these to Stephen, had a little bit of conversation, but I want to add to that, add some context between why I asked these questions, where I'm trying to go with this, and what I'd love to see happen. I'm also going to comment on some of the responses and replies and some of the concerns I have. And I'd love for you to give me feedback on this. Tell me what you think. I can't believe I'm the only one out here who feels this way. In fact, I know I'm not. I have heard from several other people, and I appreciate that, but let's get a dialogue going. Let's talk about this. Sit back. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the Jeremy conversation with Stephen. We'll be right back in just a. Okay, so for time's sake, I'm not going to play this back for you. Listen to his audio and me respond. I'm going to hit on some key points that I brought up, questions that I asked, and kind of where I was going with them. First one that I asked, and I appreciate Jeremy mentioned this, was I said, "Do you think sports cards should be regulated?" And I thought it was interesting. Stephen's first answer was yes. And he started, you could see the gears were kicking and he was thinking about it. And then he went talking about, well, they're trying to do that with pricing. And he started referring to break comp, which I think is interesting because it doesn't say break comp there. He talks about break comp later on. So my first thoughts on this is, first of all, I don't think he understands, or Jeremy does, when I refer to regulation. Um, we, many of us in the hobby, will admit it is a statistical probability of a form of gambling. I think we should say that. We should openly call it gambling. And that being the case, we should block or not allow minors to participate. I know that's crazy. And actually, in casinos, it's 21, by the way. And I'm not sure I want to go that far. And it's a whole different conversation that comes up here. But um, some type of bar and some understanding of who you're selling to and the dangers of addiction. And also, I'd say this too, some rules of what you should be doing on and off camera with cards. There's a lot of pieces to this regulation that we'll talk about later on. But my quick point is that I think Stephen goes off on this whole tangent about pricing and price fairness and price awareness. That is not the form of regulation that I would ever support. I don't want price control. Okay, I'm all for market pricing. What I'm fearful of is people come into silos. They think, oh, my buddy Joe, he pulls all the fire. And Joe's prices are using deceptive selling tactics and disguising pricing through like wheels of fortune and micro auctions with shill bidding. And customers are paying a whole lot more than they should be paying for a very, very shady practice. That is what I'm concerned about in the pricing. And I think you eliminate that with price transparency. Price transparency gives you a market that's what market pressures on these people to change their pricing. I think we can also talk about some of these games with chance that probably should be changed or regulated, or I don't know. There's some the shill bidding and the micro auctions is something that really gets my goat. Okay, so I'll just leave it at this. He's quick to say yes to regulation, but they go off on a totally different tangent of what should be what I'm referring to as regulation. And I will say this: one of my goals, and I did reach out to Stephen and IG, and I will reach out to other breakers. I think we as the breaking community should come together and come up with a list of rules, right? Some goals, a code of ethics, a code of business, whatever that might be. Let's start by self-regulating, by putting that data together. And there's a lot of things I think we could do. And I say this as I'm not a breaker. I don't want to start breaking. I like to buy into breaks and I want to build a community that believes there's faith and trust in that, right? I want to know the casino, the games aren't fixed. Okay. The next question that I bring up was, and I even said to him, what do they do to stop minors from buying into breaks? And it was interesting because Steven said, that's a great question. I don't know what we do. And he goes back and forth and they talk about it. And they basically, here's the thing. You listen to this in the video. I have to get the minute points. It's in the first hour of the conversation because it's the only part I could participate in. I did listen to the whole thing. Anyway, he says, isn't that on Fanatics Live? Don't they vet who can come in? Isn't it a credit card? And Jeremy goes, well, yeah, you have to have a PayPal account, means you have to have an adult. Well, a few things here. First of all, my kids who are under 18 have PayPal accounts. My kids who are under 18 all have debit cards, right? Or act just like a credit card. So that is not what keeps kids from getting into your transactions. This is an area where, again, I think we need to have some regulation. We're very good at regulating nakedness. If you're naked, man, kid can't see any of that stuff. But if you want to buy sports cards and gamble, world's open. And that's a concern to me. That's something, again, I think we as a community should say, yeah, do we want 16-year-olds buying this? And let me say this too, which I think is interesting. the comment that Steven says, well, aren't they sports cards? Can a kid go buy at Target? And I agree with that until we get into sports card breaking, because it's not. There's statistical differences. And I agree with Jeremy's later comment about, well, you go and buy a piece of cake. Oh, here's the difference. When I'm slicing up a cake, everybody's often can get an equal share. Random breaks is not necessarily equal share. When the teams are assigned, right? The guy who got the Texans for $50 on a random team, he got a better piece of cake than the guy who got the Arizona Cardinals in the same random break or PYT. Okay. There is a difference. And that is something that's important. It's in the numbers, it's in the production, it's in the print run, it's in the checklist. And this is all part of the numbers that people need to know. Like, for example, if you go to the roulette table, yeah, there's numbers all over the point, but the 0 and the 00, they're equally as available to hit as any other number on the board, right? It's just one spot, one of 38 spots. You know what I'm saying? See, people got to understand that this is gambling. We need some guidelines. Okay. So I would say this: the kid thing, I agree with them. There is nothing that's stopping that right now. But shouldn't we as a community discuss this and talk about that before some angry moms come in and take and start doing it for us? Would you support an industry of certification? So here I've asked him, do you think breaking is a profession? Are you skillful to break? Can anybody break? Should this be licensed? And I'll even go as far as say, I do believe it is a skillful thing. He makes comments about how you have to know how to slow roll the card, how to show the hits, how to let a guy who spent a lot of money down easy when he goes skunked, which I think is an interesting point to make, right? And real quickly here, he's identifying the fact that there is a angry customer, right? If I'm a bartender and I'm dealing with a drunk, you have to have some type of communication capability, some interpersonal skills. It's a skill, should be licensed. As a bartender, I had to have a certification and I had to know the state law about who I can serve and what I can't serve. Same thing should be happening with breaking, guys. So I love that he brings up that analogy there. Okay. I think right now there is no licensing board, right, Jeremy? But we as the hobby could have certifications, a self-certification, industry certification that could be done at national. And it could be a bunch of things. And I think it's a phenomenal thing to do. I think breakers should only hire certified breakers. And if you have somebody on your staff that's your brother, he should go get certified. It's not a bad thing, right? And I'm not trying to make an industry out of this and people can make money selling certifications. We can do this as a community. You can have volunteers and breakers meeting at the national and doing this and teaching other people. I don't want to make this a grift. I want to make this damn thing better, guys. Okay. Are there rules for breaking? Okay, so you talk a little bit about Fanatics Live and what they do. Fanatics Live is just one platform. I think it's interesting. I believe Phil Fawn breaks off Fanatics Live as well, right? So you have to understand a breaker can sell on many platforms. So we can't expect Fanatics Live to monitor everything. Okay. Are there rules for breaking? Yes, there should be rules, right? There should be a number of cameras. There should be recordings. There should be replays. There should be an understanding of how long the replay is available to the consumer after the break takes place. I don't think many breakers deal with that. Some do, some don't. There should be rules on chargeback. Even to the point of a breaker gets chargebacks on people, he should be able to publish information about that individual to others in the community to not allow that person to buy into other breaks, right? We need to protect both sides. There are some pieces, cards on the camera. What happens if cards fall off the camera? You know, what is good ethics? What are bad ethics? There's just some things that need to be defined. Again, I always complain anyone can grade a card, anyone can clean a card, and anyone can be a breaker. Now that's a fact, right? Anyone can brew beer, anyone can grow marijuana, but it doesn't make you a good person. You there's a lot of things everybody does. And I'm not calling those things you brew and you make marijuana bad people, but my point is we need some regulation in who's doing what. I hope I get some comments on that one. There's a question here about loaded boxes that comes up. And Stephen, one thing that concerns me, he jokingly says, yeah, we get loaded boxes. And he also used the terms we get loaded, and I've heard this term, like a hot box, right? The thing that concerns me, he justifies in his mind as a breaker, he would understand if Fanatics is sitting there and sending out bigger hits to breakers so that they get broke on camera. The problem with that, Stephen, is that makes it's like saying that the lotto card tickets for the lotto can only be won in big cities, right? The little rural farmer out in Nebraska can never win the lotto. And that is the problem. You need to have a system that's fair to everyone. Now, I know statistically, breakers break more stuff. There's more people in the city, right? But you cannot take away that belief of fairness. And that is why auditing is important. But it shows me that mentality of a breaker. They simply think about themselves. Yeah, I should break it because I should put it on camera. I'm all about the community. Look at me. And I'll get back to this. My biggest fear about breakers, I find there's two types of people at breakers. There are people who are in the card world who love cards, love opening cards. They love their friends. They go, I'm gonna start breaking, and they break for their friends, and they make it into a business, and then they're making money. Okay, and I think that's a great organic way to get into breaking. And then there's people who come in an industry and they go, "What are these idiots doing? They're buying what? I can make $150 to buy what? Just break that down. I can do that. All he's doing is mailing cards to people. I mean, shit." And they see it as a business only, right? They don't understand the passion. They don't understand the individuals behind it. They don't understand all that stuff. And they claim they do, and they claim they're all about community, right? That is probably what bothers me and concerns me when breakers say, they understand the loaded box theory. Give me one moment. I'm going to pause here for a second. That's the wrong pause button. I'm going to hit. There's a point in the video where Steven, Mr. Baum, makes a comment about people are upset about breakers breaking cards on camera. And all of the people should be happy for breakers breaking on camera. Mr. Baum says that by breaking cards on camera, we're able to let collecting community know when big hits happen. And if we didn't do that, people would never know when these big hits happen. Let's give, for example, the Luca Black 101. Maybe some collector collected it. He's opened it and sitting in his closet and he's money by now. Find that hard to believe, but it could be possible. Where luckily, if it was broken on camera, we'd all know about it and that'd make the community better. And he even goes on to argue later on that if hits were tracked by this, they could adjust pricing real time. Now, I'm going to call cap on that. I appreciate him thinking that far ahead, but I don't believe that, right? And what I mean by that, let's go back to breakers back when they were chasing LeBron, triple logo man thing. They were paying $20,000 a case to get those boxes. Boxes that I think allocated prices were like $1,000, $2,000. Let's say $3,000 for an allocated price. So breakers spent a lot of money getting that so they could break it because they were paying a lot to on the spots. If as soon as that comes out that the card's been hit, all those prices do go down in value if people know about it. How many breakers you think just shut up and just kept open those boxes, didn't tell anybody about it, and didn't adjust their prices quickly because of that? A lot of them do. And I understand that. That is an area where, again, I think transparency, visibility, hit tracking would help us self-regulate the market. Let's not put the burden on the breaker to change its price. Let's just have the information available. Hit tracker just pointed out that 5 of these, top cards have been hit right now. And because of that, prices, you should start seeing prices go down. And if not, stop buying until those prices go down. Let the market adjust. This is what we need, a more informed marketplace. That's how a marketplace becomes a marketplace, by the way, is when it has information. Let me point out something. I commented it in the video. I think there's 2 pieces of data that breakers are desperately missing out on. And again, they're so focused on making money. I don't think this is something that's coming up in their mind, but they should be, every box that they open typically has a barcode, not just a barcode, a logo, a unique identifier on the pack of the box. They should track that number and they should later track just the hits. So as inventory, as they open boxes, and I know they don't want to do this live, but somebody would do this. They take the box, scan it, number would go into the spreadsheet, and then the hits, the autographs, what are the top cards would be listed in there. Now this data would then be sent up, the hit data could be sent up into the cloud to some service, and we'd all get access to this. Now think about this. You could even sell this data, by the way, right? Your breakers come together, put together a hit tracker and sell this as a service to people who want to get this information. I'm cool with that. In fact, there's a business right there in doing this. Okay, that data will leak out, kind of like milk. Milk's best when it's fresh, but if you explain it, people are gonna know which hits are out there. But if I had live information, a hit feed where I could go into and see which hits are coming out, and breakers had that, so they could adjust that. That's a good way to go. Now, 2 pieces of data, not just pricing, but they should know what the hits are, so they can track and verify: are we really getting loaded? Is our hit percentage high or low, right? And they could share that with their community. Look, we are hitting pretty high. The average hit rate right now is about this in a box. Look at our hit rate on boxes, right? Or actually, we've been running low. Our boxes aren't hitting really high, right? You can do a couple of things to do that. Adjust price. Again, a lot of breakers aren't going to want to share the bad part, right? But again, I think transparency and visibility. I imagine one day before I get into a break, I can go to a website where I can look at the product and I can click a button and I can see all the major hits on almost like a checklist and see which ones have been lit up, which ones have been pulled, which ones are still live. Right, that would be exciting to me. Then as a card hunter, I could go hunt the right card, not knowing whether it's available or there or not. He talks about hit tracking and he makes a comment, oh, this is innovation. We're coming with a great idea. Now, again, let me say this. I've been looking at hit tracking for years. One of the comments someone actually made to me is maybe they don't want to know. And I absolutely agree with it. I believe there is a dark underbelly of the hobby that doesn't want change. Okay. They don't want transparency. They don't want lights in rooms or roaches or growing mushrooms. Okay. Hit tracking, like I said, is not necessarily good for everybody. It really isn't. It's best for the consumer. It's not best for the guy holding the wax when he finds that all the good hits are gone, looks on the board and goes, shit, I'm sitting in a bunch of cases of wax that are actually worthless now. Right? See what I'm saying? Now, in my opinion, this helps move inventory, makes the hobby a little more fluid. But that's, my opinion of that. We can talk about that later on. They have a whole conversation about price transparency. They talk about breaker comp here. And I actually brought up a comment that said, have you thought about a cheaper price model? Like be the lowest price and say, hey, we're doing our breaks at cost. Cost is product plus shipping, plus a little bit of overhead. But our breakers receive tips. So if you get a good hit, we encourage you to tip. Tip generously. And the breakers can buy into that, right? They can have their, um, solicit for the tips. Hey, don't forget to tip your breaker, right? Have a voice in the background coming in. I don't even think make this like a show. In fact, I'll give you an example. If I'm running a brake company, I shouldn't be on camera. I should have my talent on camera, right? I should be doing everything I can to run a good operation that's legit. The cards are taken care of, shipping's done properly. My customers are happy. I'm talking to my customers. I'm helping them get a new product. And my breakers come in and they entertain like a DJ and they get tipped for it very well. And the more they do, the more they make, right? The more inventory they blow through, whatever it might be. But incentivize them, move the business a little bit around, right? Make it more community friendly. Okay, because exploiting money from your end user is not the way to do that. You're going to run through them. And breakers know this. Most breakers, I would say, out of 100 customers they have, probably 20%, maybe I'll even bullshit and go 50% stick around. I think it's closer to 20 something percent stick around over and over a period of time. I think they always are getting a new people, but the core base, right? Maybe it's 50%. So look at the pricing models, look at price support and report your pricing. I'll say this another thing too. Jeremy made a comment that I must be anti that breakers are making too much money. No, that's not it. I will joke about breakers. You're just really gift on openers, but I want them to be well paid. I want them to be certified. I want them to be legit. I want them to be treated like a blackjack dealer, right? Or a poker dealer. If you're at a poker table and everybody hits a big card, you should get a big tip. You pull a big one-on-one with one guy in the break, gets, I don't know, $10,000 card. He should be tipping the damn dealer, right? The whole table should be cheering about this. We do this in other things. You're going to tell me, oh, we can't do it here? And yes, it's gambling. There's a comment by Steven about how he doesn't feel like Fanatics prices have gone up much in the last year or two. And this is something that I think is going to bother a lot of people watching that. Go, man, you're out of touch. Because me as a collector, I can tell you they have. They definitely have. They put less in the product and they pay charging as much, if not more, for the product. What I think he's also unaware of the fact is that I'm aware of the fact that the allocated price is what's changed the most. And this is what I'm concerned about. If everybody's buying at $200 a box and you're going to market to $400 a box because everybody's got $200 a box, I don't want to say it's wrong. I guess it depends on the market, but that's really what he's saying. He's like, well, the Topps prices aren't higher, right? I'm still buying at the same price I was last year. I'm still buying at $250 a box and marking it up for that $150 I make, per box. I think he's out of touch on the allocation, if that makes sense. Um, volume doesn't bother the breakers. That was something I thought was interesting. Um, here's another comment that came up. Fanatics Live requires you to ship something. You can't get a skunk prank. You can't get nothing, which I remember seeing that in other breaks. There's a legal reason for that. I forget what it is. If anybody knows about that, let me know. Other breakers might know this. But I remember back in the day, breakers had to send a skunk pack. I think it might have gone like eBay. You couldn't sell someone eBay and not ship them anything. Like they had to actually receive something. Maybe it's for tax purposes. But I think it's interesting that eBay Live or Fanatics Live recognize that. In fact, I think this is another thing. Like everybody in this industry tippy toes around the fact that it's gambling and we're getting away with some stuff, but maybe we shouldn't. Let's just call a spade, man. Is that okay? What do they say nowadays? Let's call poo poo. No, that's not the right thing. I don't know what we say, but you understand what I'm saying. Break comp. Let me just say this on break comp. Look, I'm not saying break comp's changing everything. What I want I recognize too that just because break comp has a price that's cheap doesn't mean I'm gonna get that box. And yes, that breaker's gonna sell the product quicker. I understand all those things, but I think what we're trying to do is get rid of the little pull man who's selling a case for 2x the price the market is. That is shady activity, right? Really, really shady activity, in my opinion. Now, oh, but Ziggy, he gives a service, but great. Well, let his prices be public and let his service, show that. I think after time, that's gonna not gonna scale, not gonna work. I also think if he had to things like not sell to minors, I think his business would be hurt dramatically. So I don't think little Pullman is going to support some of the regulation I'd like to see put in place. And I'm saying self-regulation, by the way. Break comp to me is just transparency. It's just giving us, just giving me information. I'm not going to make my decision solely on that, right? It just gives me a bar. Hey, what's this going for? It's like a comp. I just want to know what's the average price for, this card. Okay. I'll see if I can get a better one or maybe I pay more for it. I don't know. It's up to me. I might find a breaker that I like more, right? He might have a really, really good reason why I'm using his break. Um, anyway, I'll hope this video makes a little sense. I didn't want to go too long, but I want to talk about, my thoughts on breaking. I'd also say this too. Like I said, I'm going to continue moving the ball forward in a direction towards some type of community regulation. And call me out, guys. If you think I'm totally nuts, let me have it. I know I'm getting lots of support for this. I'd like to have more support. In fact, I'd like to see some of the leaders step up. Some of the breakers step up. I know many of you probably agree with me, but we'll see. We'll see.